Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This handsome devil next to me, that's Tim. And this is The Second Legacy. And thank you for stopping by. Today, we are going to break down something that Tulsi Gabbard said. It's quite the controversy. Do we believe her? Do we not believe her? Is she, a communist? Or is she just a gun controller turned the correct way, seen the light, all the good things? We're going to break that down right now. But this content, we're going to do a quick sponsorship spot, and then we're going to hit it. There's a new company that I've come across, and they want you to know about it. But I'll be honest with you, man, this intrigues me. All right. This is called Ammo Squared. Okay. So listen to the overall idea and just give me your initial gut on this. So what they do is they've taken the elements of investing and of 401ks, and they've partnered with ammo storage, and they've made it into one individual solution. Now, does that intrigue you at a high level, or am I crazy?
Well, no, actually, it seems really interesting to me. I've told people before to invest in ammunition because it seems like the cost of ammo is constantly going up, and people always need ammunition. It would be pretty neat to be able to tuck some away as an investment. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly. That's exactly how they're doing it. So let me just walk you through how this works. So this company, Ammo Squared, they're family owned and they're operated, and they've been in business for like 8 years. What effectively they do is you put your investment capital into an account, and whenever you want to cash it out, magic, everything that you've been storing up for X amount of time and whatever differentiation that you want shows up. So instead of being at the mercy of the fluctuating market prices and the lack of availability, you've been doing it over time, and then you get what you need, but you're taking advantage of time and not the variable fluctuations in the market and availability. It's actually really clever.
Yeah, that's a neat concept. I find that to be truly fascinating.
I love talking about companies that intrigue me, but this one has no minimums to buy. They have no memberships needed, no extra fees, and they can literally do whatever they want on whatever budget they want. It is essentially, that's the best way to describe it, is it's actually an investment on your freedom seeds. There's no better way to say it.
Exactly.
Right?
That's how I would say it. And it certainly seems like an interesting service. I would definitely encourage people to check that one out.
Yeah, check it out. It's called Ammo Squared, but we just ran across it. They threw it our way, and I was genuinely intrigued. So I hope you guys enjoy looking at that. All right, Tim, listen. We got to talk about Tulsi. She's quite the rage.
She is.
I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah. She definitely finds a way to insert herself into the conversation, doesn't she?
No, it seems to be she's popping up like daisies, like everywhere. Yeah. It really is interesting. I find these things fascinating, how people will be very hardcore on one side, and then subtly there's like an all of a sudden overt shift directly into the middle, and it's like, I'm not over there anymore. Now I'm here. And then 7 months later, it's kind of I was there, but now I'm flirting with further this way. Yeah. And it's so fascinating because the internet, there's no shortage of opinions on this woman. I can tell you that.
The internet can be rather brutal because through the application of perceived anonymity, people will say what's really on their minds versus what you might hear from them in person. And so they can get a little spicy, the comments, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting, particularly with Tulsi around the 2A, because we're going to break this down. Beautiful people, The Second Legacy. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, turn that notification bell on. But this is a segment around something that she said on Donald Trump Jr.'s show around the 2A, because he pressed her on the 2A stuff, because you can tell, like, this is a thing, right? So with that, Doctor, let's start the first one. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, Tim, as we go into this.
There seems to be sort of, has there been a change in that? Is there just a more of an understanding, of the Second Amendment? Because it's the one that seems to repeat itself a lot. I'd love you to just be able to address it for the crowd.
Yeah, of course. I grew up here in Hawaii, where, as you probably know, it's one of the most restrictive gun ownership states in the country. I certainly didn't grow up in any kind of gun culture or things like some of my friends and your friends, where they grew up around guns ever since they were kids. I probably shot a pistol with my dad a couple of times and didn't touch a rifle until I joined the military.
Okay. So I set that up like this for a reason. Okay. Hawaii. I love when they say it correctly, by the way.
I know. Everybody else says Hawaii, but Hawaii.
Everyone else says Hawaii. Yeah. Hawaii. Which I'm pretty sure is the right way to do it. But this is an important setup, because I personally love this exchange for a very specific reason. Okay. Is time now for the disclaimer, Tim? Should we throw the disclaimer out now, or should we do it in a minute?
No, go ahead and throw it out now. Let's just get it out of the way because we'll forget later.
Let's just get it out of the way. That's true.
Yeah.
So when we're breaking this down, beautiful people of the Second Legacy, this is not an endorsement or a criticism of Tulsi. This is literally just analyzing what she's saying and breaking down a conversation around it. So don't take this as pro or con. This is literally just observing something, okay? Because we tend to do that a little bit in our space where it's well, you said this, therefore you must be. Well, no, we're just talking about it. Okay?
Well, at least Braden is. I might get it in my
right.
opinion because I can't hold my tongue. Gen X over here.
I hope you. I want your opinions. Like, we all want the opinions.
Okay.
All I'm saying is we're trying to let people have all the information so they make up their own minds. That's what we're trying to say.
That's what I would encourage our viewers to do is make up your own mind.
Yes.
Listen to our opinions, but don't formulate your own opinions based on one person's or two people's opinions. Take in all the information and make up your own mind. So we're not trying to tell you how to think, in other words.
Except one group of people that you always want to ignore. And what's that group of people, Tim?
The commies.
The commies. Yeah. You got to watch out for the commies. They'll get you every time. They will. But I think it's interesting with the way that we set this up because she goes from a common experience, right? I think this is very good communication delivery and skill that she exhibits in this interview, these 3 segments. Oh, yeah. But she establishes early on, well, she's from Hawaii. She's from a gun control state and a gun control environment. So her common experience wasn't gun rights, right? Now, that's really key as we go into this because it speaks to a lot of people. At least this is my take on this, right? If you have a lot of people who are on the Democrat side of the aisle or the middle of the aisle or lean right, lean left, they're not the extreme right and they're not the extreme left. They're right. They're kind of in that middle ground, right? That's where the majority of the people are. So she's speaking to them to a common experience. And I think that's why this is so powerful. Mm-hmm. Not because she's all of a sudden a pro 2A champion, but who the audience she's targeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It seems like she's perhaps more appealing to that fence sitter versus, somebody that has very strong opinions regarding the 2A.
Fence sitter, way to prove the point of this segment.
I haven't seen the
fence
clip
sitters.
Yet, so.
Yeah, that's worse than the commies.
The fence-sitting commies.
God in heaven. Okay, let's just go to 2 so we can get more context.
I've always held the position that I support the Second Amendment and understood our intrinsic right as humans to defend ourselves and to defend our loved ones. I got to tell you, as time went on, and I spent a lot of time, especially over my campaign for president and the years since, with a lot of folks in New Hampshire and Iowa and different parts of the country who had a very different experience than I did growing up. And they raised a lot of concerns around some of the things that throughout my time in Congress had all been coined as, well, this is common sense gun safety laws. This is well-intentioned in order to try to make sure that our communities are safe. That's a pretty compelling argument. But as with many things in Washington, as you know well, once you start peeling back the surface, you can understand that for a lot of folks who are using those words, they don't have good intentions at all. Their real objective is to try to get rid of the Second Amendment and take away our right to own firearms and our right to defend ourselves.
Now she's speaking our language.
Right. But
man,
this is why.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, go ahead.
She's crafty, man. How she rolled into that, obviously she's given a lot of thought to how she was going to explain her past positions.
Yes.
But holy cow, is she gifted with gab because that's compelling even to me. I'm like, and I'm usually that guy that's like, no, sorry. Once a gun grabber, always a gun grabber. She gets a little bit of that emotion in the back of my mind. Like, well, maybe she is being truthful here. And then reality takes back over. Nope, she's still a gun grabber. Fence-sitting commies. No.
Fence-sitting commies.
Seriously, so this is what I struggle with when a politician does a complete 180 on something they previously felt so strongly about and always voted against, to suddenly, within a relatively short period of time, they've done a complete 180 and now they're the staunchest, advocate for the 2A, when their voting record not that long ago was the exact opposite. And so you have to ask yourself, if you take into the whole picture of her leaving the Democrat Party, her having a falling out, getting sideways with Hillary Clinton, the Democrats just absolutely hating her. She's a politician. And what's a politician to do if you've burned bridges with the party you've been a part of your entire professional career? You got one choice, a two-party system. Well, you got two: disappear into obscurity or try to restart your campaign on the other side of the aisle. And that's what I inherently find distrustful, right? When a politician does a 180 on something that used to be a core value to them, right? What's your thoughts?
Correct. No, so I think this is something that we look at a lot more analytically, because the propensity is to say exactly what you just said.
Right.
Once a gun controller, always a gun controller. Okay. This is the part where I reemphasize what we were saying before these clips rolled. I'm not suggesting that she is a gun controller. I'm not suggesting that she's not a gun controller. The thing that I want to address that you just said so perfectly, you just walked through the experience that you had listening to her saying that, and it made you question and go, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. That's profound. That actually was well said, and that's legitimately, I feel that way sometimes. It was a well-reasoned
response.
It was well-reasoned.
Yes.
But you, being Tim from Military Arms Channel, are extremely sound in your opinions on gun control, your opinion on gun rights, and your opinion on the rights of which we have stationed ourselves around that Second Amendment piece. Now, that's important because you are not going to be swayed nearly as easily. The people in the middle, you remember that intro where I was saying about the common experience and the Democrat in the middle? The people who are over there who are resonating with her just heard a doubt be created around the gun control narrative. This was more damaging for gun control than anything that you and I could have said, because we will be perceived as biased by those same people in the middle. She's coming from the common experience, so people identify with her with that shared experience, and she just threw a doubt and a grenade in the idea of common sense safety, saying it's a lie, and they're really just manipulating you to get your rights. That's why this is so powerful to me.
She went from, look, I grew up not really understanding the Second Amendment to now, after the military and friends and my campaign and all this other stuff and everything else I just mentioned that she failed to mention. But now I'm
of course.
Now, I share the view of 2A purists like ourselves. And so the question I ask myself as a voter, why would I vote for somebody that's done a complete 180 politically on something that is a key element of how I vote, the 2A? We have a nation of 330 million people. You're telling me my best option is vote for this person that has flipped sides? And if you take a look at this in a military setting, right? Benedict Arnold, what happens when you have somebody that's loyal to one cause, shifts loyalties because he thinks it might lose wealth, fortune, or life, shifts loyalties, goes over to the other side? Well, turncoats can just as easily be flipped again. So if you can have your opinions swayed in a short span of time in one direction, doesn't it stand to reason they can be shifted back the other direction if something happens?
Correct.
More information.
And I think that's more the piece that we focus on. You're right, though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as simple as once a gun controller, always a gun controller. I think that politicians in general will basically follow whatever the party line is that they attach themselves to your point. So if you've got a Democrat that all of a sudden becomes a Republican, they're going to toe the Republican line, and they're probably going to toe it a little tighter because they have the built-in distrust, right? So for me, I don't think that's unusual. You've got someone who's a Democrat who's going to have issues with trust with Republican voters, so they're going to have to go further into the Republican voting side. Now, it's very, very simple.
And to be clear, I don't think she's actually declared herself Republican. I think she's still hanging on the independent thing. But who is she pandering to right now?
Well, wait for it, because this is the interesting part. Remember, you said it so well. She is an eloquent speaker. She moves through this conversation so well and culminates in this. Remember where we were at the very beginning of this, how neutral and subtle it was. Now watch this third clip and see how extreme it becomes in the scale of what she's talking about. Doctor number 3, please.
And even more pointedly, especially with where we are now and where the Biden-Harris administration has taken us, our founders intended the Second Amendment to be a check on the abuse of power by a tyrannical government. And when you look back at the things that started to roll out throughout COVID, When you look at what the Biden-Harris administration has done, where they're using the power of our law enforcement, the county, state, and federal level in different ways, using the power of the Department of Justice, the power of the national security state against American citizens.
Wow. I haven't seen this yet.
I don't think you're gonna either. I don't think this is going media.
That is a major shift in ideology, going from, well, I always supported the Second Amendment, but I always voted against it, to, oh yeah, the government is just trying to take your guns away, and your only defense against tyrannical government is the Second Amendment. I mean, that is a true purist position to take. And I never took her for an originalist, which is what the Supreme Court, the majority of the Supreme Court's accused of being, right? Originalist meaning the original interpretation of the Constitution, not the progressive view of the Constitution. Like, well, it's a living, breathing document. Your rights are based upon the whims and the ebbs and flow of, social changes. No, I'm an originalist, right? The document is set in stone unless very specific requirements are met to change that document, not just a simple 51% or 51 votes in 100, right? Like in the Senate. So seeing her take that hardline position, starting off very humbly to, go get them to a team. You're out there defending life and liberty and defending, democracy, republic against tyranny. Boy, that's a huge, huge shift. That isn't just going, well, it was, a little bit anti-gun to, okay, look, let's be a little bit more pragmatic here. And the Second Amendment's important to me. No, she went full originalist and like, no, the founders were very clear. That's an originalist statement.
Isn't that fascinating? Like you can see why this clip caught my attention so tightly, because in a minute and a half, maybe a 3-minute interview, she started off through, like you said, I always believed the Second Amendment. I didn't have a common experience with guns back in the day. Common sense gun reform did make sense. To, check on tyranny.
Yeah.
Look at the Biden and Kamala Harris administration. I'm like, wow, that was... Man, you took the scale and you just went, I'm just going to keep moving it while I'm talking.
Right. And not only that, I mean, it's really interesting because she's not just saying this as a politician. There's images now floating around that she's made sure to circulate of her in tactical gear with an AR-15 at various matches and shooting events. She's going hard after this for some reason. Now, maybe you could also make...
It's her weakest point.
But it is her weakest point, but you could also make the argument, because to select this topic of all the conservative issues that she could pander to, if you will, why the two-way? So maybe she really did have a change of heart. Could it happen? Absolutely. My problem is politicians. I don't trust them. When they make these big policy shifts, I tend to question why they're doing it. I think they're doing it for votes. I don't necessarily believe they believe what they're saying. They just want power. And so, what is it here? I honestly don't know. It could go either way.
I'm in the exact same boat.
Right.
I'm in the exact same position. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the safe bet is just don't put her in power. Don't make her somebody's VP pick and, don't vote her back into Congress. That's the safe option. But if she's being truthful and she maintains that position and doesn't shift it back towards the left in the future, she would be a huge asset.
Correct.
So there's a conundrum.
I'm so glad you just said that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you just said that, because that's how we're going to wrap this. Because you just asked the fundamental question that I think is so powerful. This individual who is doing this, whether it be Tulsi Gabbard, whether it be Ronald Reagan, whether it be insert politician here.
Right.
Okay. They are either going to be the most effective tool to further the Second Amendment because they can speak to a group of people who they used to align with, or they're going to revert back and be the most damaging to there is no in the middle with someone like this. You're either going to push gun rights extremely farther than we would have been able to, or you're going to set them back a lot.
Yep.
And I think that's so fascinating, because if you look at, God, what you just said was so, dude, it's just ringing in my head. The safe thing.
Yeah.
The safe thing is the 2A community in general. We want to safeguard the 2A at all costs. Like that is our thing. We're like, this shall not be infringed. They're already infringing on it all the time. It's the whipping post that consistently gets nailed. And so they're very, very protective, and we all are, and we should be. Right.
Because once even a piece of our rights are lost, they're gone forever. Every time they get a little bit of our
Yes.
rights, we don't get them back. So this is all or nothing
No.
for us every time it comes up for a vote.
hmm That's why it's so interesting, because if you throw someone like Tulsi Gabbard away, who has the ability to talk to the middle and to the middle left and open the eyes of what they're saying because they tune us out,
Right.
is it going to do more damage to our end goal than giving her a chance? And again, I'm not putting a position on it like a preference. I'm just saying in general, like a Ronald Reagan, for example. A lot of people will say I didn't like Ronald Reagan. Some people say he's a fake Republican. Some like lots of different opinions on Ronald Reagan. But at the end of the day, Ronald Reagan also kind of had a mixed bag conservative Republican as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, he went economically really strong on the Republican conservative side of the things, but on gun control, he was also a proponent. He had little elements of California in him.
Yep.
Right. So you kind of have that. I don't know. It's one of those very weird, not clean and cut, clear items that we just need more time and analysis, in my opinion. But man, it's a brain scratcher.
It is. That's one of the craziest flips I've seen politically in quite some time. Guys, comment down below. What do you think of Tulsi Gabbard? Do you trust her? Do you think she would be an asset to the 2A movement? Or is she a liability? Let us know. Thank you for watching Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.